Hey, it's Lee for On Your Marks Wrestling, and I'm here with a New Japan Pro Wrestling Sakura Genesis review. You'll have to bear with me on this one. I'm still getting used to the names in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and this show felt really long, so I was getting a little tired, so I started only writing the last names. So on commentary for this one, we do have Kevin Kelly and Don Callis. They're joined by Rocky Romero, who I believe is part of Chaos. I think he's part of Chaos. So we have our first match. It's a tag team match. It's got Yujiro, and he's accompanied by Peter, who is a rabbit. No, I think she wears rabbit ears. Maybe it's because maybe that's why she's called Peter, like Peter Rabbit. I don't know. It's a very attractive woman in a thong. It's great. Gets my thumbs up. And Chase Owens, who I wrote has the most forgettable physique in all of wrestling. That's fine. I'm a fat guy. I'm allowed to say it. And they're against the Young Bucks. There's an attempt by the Young Bucks to do a friendly kind of handshake at the beginning, and it does go through, but then the two other guys attack the Bucks when they have their back turned. I wrote that Nick had a great fire spot, but then eats a backbreaker into a faceplant from Owens. It looked really cool. This was kind of a high-action, fairly fast match. Eventually, Matt has a sharpshooter. Forget on who it was. I think it was Yujiro. And Nick eventually does a kind of faceplant on whoever's in the sharpshooter. And he keeps the sharpshooter stays on, and they do get the submission win. At the end of the match, there is an actual friendly handshake between the two groups, which used to be part of the unified Bullet Club. Now they're kind of part of separate parts of the Bullet Club. So the next, we have another match, another tag team match. This time it has Tai Chi. I'm looking at my notes here. And I think is maybe said Izuka or Azuka versus Ishii and Yano. Now Tai Chi uses the mic stand. He comes into with a mic stand and basically sings his theme song. And he uses it to gain an early advantage at beating up guys with it. I didn't hear that this was no DQ, but I'm hoping it was no DQ, or else they really bury the ref here. Because you have the mic attack, then you have a chair attack, then you have a bell hammer attack, and there's no DQ. Then you get Izuka using a rope to choke, and there's a lot of biting by that guy as well. Again, no DQ. Tai Chi at one point throws the ref down onto the ground. Still no DQ, so I'm pretty sure it's no DQ, or I really hope it was. Eventually, though, you get Ishii clotheslining Izuka into a roll-up by Yano, and so Ishii and Yano actually get the win. This was probably the shortest match of the night, and it was probably still about 10 minutes. I found that overall the show kind of felt long. It was not bad at all, but it just felt really long. So next we get a 6-man tag, and I believe it is for the Neverweight Tag Team Championship. I believe it's a 3-on-3 title kind of deal. I'm not sure. It's Taguchi and Michael Elgin and Makabe versus Tamatanga, Tonga Loa, and Bad Luck Fale. So basically, there's an attack on the outside that gives the Tongans an advantage. At one point, Makabe has a nice, strong, fired up, good guy run. Eventually, Taguchi kind of starts throwing hip attacks all over the place. I don't really like one hip attack. I really don't like 100 hip attacks. It becomes a bit of a comedy thing with a bunch of hip attacks by all these random people. And at one point, Taguchi kind of does this baseball coach thing where he's kind of telling them to round the bases, essentially, with guys running into people. And eventually, he also starts giving signs, but his two teammates are pulled out of the ring, and he's surprised to find the other guys over there. The match ends with a springboard cutter type thing. I forget what it's called. I think it's something stun, gut stun. Anyways, it's Tamatanga hits it and gets the win. Then we have another 6-man tag. So they're all 6-man, 4-man tags. You got Tanahashi, David Finlay, and Juice Robinson versus Jay White, Yoshihashi, and Goto. It starts with White and Finlay. If you remember in the last kind of big match they had in America, Finlay kind of came into the ring after the White match and attacked White and told him, hey, we're never going to stop fighting, and he challenged him for the U.S. title. It's back and forth between the teams. It's an okay match, nothing crazy. There's a big finishes spot where everybody kind of hits their finish. But eventually, the match ends with Tanahashi hitting his high five flow for the win. Tanahashi, legendary guy. It's fine to give him a win in 6-man tags. So then, guess what we have coming up? Another 6-man tag. It's Evil and Sonata and Naito versus Killer Elite Squad. So Lance Archer and Davey Boy Smith and Minoru Suzuki. Evil apparently was out for a while with an orbital bone injury. I was not really aware, though I do remember seeing him back on July 4th, or is it January 4th? So Suzuki, there's all sorts of stuff going on in this match, but while Suzuki is attacking Naito on the outside, Archer taunts the crowd. Well, earlier he started by spitting on the crowd, but then he taunts a baby. He literally puts his hand in the baby's face. I thought it was great. Suzuki puts a leg bar on Naito, and it looks kind of gross, like the way his foot is angled. It just looks gross. I'm sure it's fine. I wrote that Sonata has a little impressive run in here. He looks like a super athlete. I think that guy's going to be a future star. Naito and Suzuki keep fighting outside, kind of keeps them out of the match, essentially. And Killer Elite Squad eventually hit 2 power bombs on Evil and Sonata, and they get the win that way. Now, the running storyline throughout was that Suzuki's been doing everything to try to get Naito to agree to a match with him, and Suzuki is the Intercontinental Champion, so you would think Naito would go for it, but Naito's got a mind of his own. That's the whole kind of story they're going with. And then the same thing goes for the tag teams, except they're not being as nearly as kind of committed to it, but Killer Elite Squad certainly does want a shot at the championship that Evil and Sonata have. At the end of the match, Naito cuts a promo on Suzuki. I don't know if he actually accepts a challenge for the Intercontinental Championship. It's not really explained, but he kind of lays down in the ring in his nonchalant way. Suzuki comes in, and he says a bunch of stuff to him, to Naito. But he doesn't do anything to Naito, who's just there and available to be hit. Instead, excuse me. As I said, that show ran a little long. Instead, he attacks a young boy on the outside of the ring, which is always funny. Naito, after Suzuki kind of said his piece and starts leaving, Naito says something else that appears to really anger Suzuki, who again attacks a young boy and hits him with a chair and all sorts of stuff. So I don't know what's happening, but I'm guessing it's going to be a match between Naito and Suzuki, and that's fine because I love Naito. Naito is, from the matches I've seen, from the little bit that I've seen of NJPW, Naito is my favorite wrestler there. Kenny Omega would be a close second. So then we have Hiromu Tanahashi and Bushi versus Sho and Yo from Roppongi 3K versus it's Kanemaru and Desperado. So this is a 3-way. It's a weird thing. I think it's, what do they call that? Tornado tag, where you can tag in any team you want. Even though that's not really explained at the beginning. You kind of see it later on and they feel the need to explain it to you. Excuse me. It's a very fast-moving match. Early on, everything is quick. since anyone can tag anyone else, there's kind of some weird combinations. At one point, Rocky Romero is in there and he gets chased out by Tanahashi. That's kind of one of the storylines. Or Takahashi. Yeah, sorry, Takahashi. So Romero runs into the crowd. So he left the announcer booth for a minute. Eventually he gets thrown into the ring, and Takahashi really attacks him. What do we get? There's a cool spot where there's basically a sunset flip into a triple German suplex. Thought that was pretty neat. Takahashi hits two pretty impressive moves. I don't know which one's his finisher. He does one where it's like a fireman's carry into the flippy thing versus another one where it's like a spinning fireman's carry move. Both are impressive. On the second one, he basically has the guy beat, but the ref is yanked out of the ring. Then Desperado gets into the ring. He's not legal. He's not the legal man, but he uses his belt as a weapon, and he gets the win. Then we get a Will Ospreay versus Marty Scurll match, and they basically make a point of mentioning that Scurll has Ospreay's number. There's really good chain wrestling at the beginning. Very impressive. I thought it was great. Then the running storyline becomes that Scurll attacks the neck. He hits a tombstone outside of the ring. Ospreay, in probably the most extreme moment of the night, hits a Spanish fly from the apron to the floor on Scurll. Looks pretty awesome. Then Ospreay hits a Phoenix Splash for a 2 count. He then attempts a shooting star on a draped Scurll who gets out of the way. He eats a kick for a near fall. Then there's a chicken wing with a series of reversals. Eventually Scurll attacks the fingers, and then he gets the chicken wing on, and Ospreay almost taps out, but he finds a way to get to the edge of the ring. This was after Ospreay hit an Os Cutter but couldn't pin Scurll because he was so tired and whatnot. Then Ospreay goes into the corner, and he does hit an Os Cutter on Scurll and manages to get a pin on him. I should have mentioned that about 5 minutes before the end of this match, Ospreay gets cut on the forehead. I don't know if it was intentional or not. Sure, it looked to be in the right spot for if it was intentional, but he got a nice little bit of blood. And then after the match, Ospreay grabs the mic and he calls out Kushida. And Kushida was doing commentary for the Japanese version of this, and Kushida accepts his challenge. So we're going to get that match coming up soon. The next match is the Golden Lovers versus Cody and Hangman Page. So I've got tons of notes here. The Golden Lovers have this move where they kind of go into opposite corners and then jump over the top, go to the second kind of post, and do backflips onto their opponents that are on the floor. They tried to do this, but it's well scouted. It's countered. At some point, Cody throws a chair at Omega, and then Cody and Page attack Ibushi. I wrote that. Oh yeah, that's right. There's a body slam to both Golden Lovers onto a table that's kind of laid on the ground. It's not standing yet. Looks pretty cool. Then they get that table standing at some point, and they have Omega laid out on it, and Cody's about to jump through him, and the Young Bucks come out, and they kind of say, like, what are you doing? We don't need to do this. And it essentially distracts him long enough that the move doesn't happen, and Omega manages to save himself. Omega hits a spinning wheel kick on Cody, and he catches him right over the eye and just busts him open, and Cody really gets a lot of color out of that. Not intentional, I can tell. Then we have the the Golden Lovers with that kind of cool spot where Omega has a fireman's carry on a guy and basically does a front. It's not quite a Death Valley driver, but it's kind of like it. does that, jumps onto the second rope, while Ibushi does a shooting star press, a standing shooting star press onto the guy. Then Omega does a moonsault onto him, and then Ibushi also runs up and does a moonsault onto him. I feel like I might have said the wrong name there somewhere, but whatever. I just love that spot. Then Ibushi's on Page's shoulders, and Cody Rhodes gives him a drop kick, so it's basically like any move off of the shoulders looks cool and ends up making him flip off of it. I was thinking of Legion of Doom used to do that with like a clothesline. Then Kota tries a knee, but Page holds his foot. And then as a result of that, that's kind of distracting, and Cody gets a tight assisted roll-up of Ibushi, and they win the match that way. I forgot to mention that one point Omega did end up going through that table. I forgot to. Oh man, did not write very good notes. So then it's the final match of the night. I just kicked the table, cool. And it's Zack Saber Jr. versus Okada. And this whole match, the theme is submissions. It's the whole thing. And will Okada be able to get any kind of strikes in? Because everything is submissions based. So you basically start with a bunch of submissions and escapes. You see that Okada is pretty well versed in submissions. So Okada's holding his own for the first maybe 10 minutes of the match. This match went very long. Eventually, Saber's superior submission skills start clicking in, and he starts to dominate for a while. The match does go outside, and with Saber kind of in the crowd, Okada jumps over the fence into Saber, who lands in some chairs, so that kind of looked cool. It was the first kind of big moment of the match. Granted, the submissions were all kind of dramatic. Eventually, Okada hits 2 drop kicks and a tombstone, and then he kind of celebrates with his arm out, and Saber grabs that arm and does a submission on it. It was all kind of, you think he's okay. Oh no, he's in a submission. You think Okada's out of it. No, he's in a submission again. It was kind of fun how it went back and forth like that. At one point, Okada also tries to do Rainmaker, and Saber gets 2 really good, really late 2 3/4 type counts on him, or pinning combinations on him. Eventually, Okada does hit a Rainmaker. Then he hits a second one, and he tries a third, but he misses, and he gets it into a submission. Saber holds that submission, but Okada manages to kind of pop him up over his shoulders into one of those spinning tombstones that he does. And then he hits another Rainmaker and finally does get the win. After the win, he's kind of recovering in the ring. He's getting up, and Tanahashi comes in, and you're going to have to just assume that I'm able to interpret Japanese. I'm pretty sure that Tanahashi comes in and basically kind of gives him some respect, but says, I'm still the guy who holds a record of 12 defenses of the title before, or at least I'm tied for the record or something like that. So he gives him a little bit of respect, but then he kind of gives himself props, plays to the crowd, and then Okada grabs the mic and says a bunch of stuff. I'm not quite sure what it was. It might have acknowledged Tanahashi's skills. Maybe. I think he did say Zack Saber Jr. fought hard or something like that too. And at the end of the promo, it sure seems like he accepts a challenge from Tanahashi in there, basically for his next title defense. So if he beats Tanahashi, he gets the record for the most title defenses ever by a champion. Overall, this show was filled with really good wrestling. Storylines were pushed forward. Everything made sense. So I like that. The only thing I would say is this was like 4.5 hours long. And it could have easily been 3.5 hours, or maybe even 3 hours. Some of these matches are going half an hour, 25 minutes, like 19 minutes. And they should all be reduced by about 50%. It's not that you can have one really, really long match per show. But right now, New Japan's going with like 3 or 4 of them, and all the other ones are pretty long. Occasionally, I want to see a squash. It happens. Sometimes first round knockouts happen in boxing. They happen in MMA. They can happen in professional wrestling. That's my only real complaint. Everything else was good. I love the announce team. Don Callis is the best kind of heel announcer, putting himself over all the time. I like it. So overall, I'd probably give this show a 6. I'm gonna go 7. It was really quite good, but the length is just dragging it down a little bit. Doesn't need to be that long. It's like this video. I could have finished it 2 minutes ago. It would have been much better, but I kept going. Anyways, thanks for watching. I will probably have a Raw review tomorrow, as will Robert, I'm guessing. So those are probably going to be the next 2 videos we put up. And then we're heading into WrestleMania, so we're probably going to have a little bit more content than we normally do. Not that we haven't had a lot of content. So thanks for watching again. New Japan, lots of fun. So far I'm enjoying my subscription. And yeah, I hope you guys check this show out.